there are some comps to Brandon Aiyuk and Klay Thompson. Not a lot, because Klay, that was all the injury, and it took 3 years. But I see one very, very clear comp, and it's the same point that you backed me on that we made at the Warriors Summit, which is timing.
Yeah.
And so players get offended. Klay's like, wait, you broke off Draymond. You broke off Wiggs. You broke off Poole. Well, now it's my turn. And the Warriors are like, world's different now. We missed the playoffs. And you went 0 for 10. And you had a lot of games where you didn't play well. And maybe,
you were grumpy.
And maybe even a bigger deal is, you really frustrated everybody around you. You were not a great locker room presence.
I was thinking about the timing as you and Grandy were going back and forth. If, Brandon, if they would have gone to him in February and said, we're just going to have you play out your fifth-year option versus what happened to Klay, which was, here's 2-48 before the year started, and he says no, and then you get through the year, like you said, no playoffs, and Klay goes 0 for 10 in the play-in game, and now the offer is not only less, but the offer was non-existent. So if you're Klay, you're feeling like, hey, what happened to 2-48 that was on the table 8 months ago, and the team is saying, well, now you're going to have to wait. And for Brandon Aiyuk, it's a little bit of a reverse, because if the team offered him 26, and then, he was thinking, okay, maybe get my suit ready. Maybe it's time to sign. And then the market changes and he suddenly goes at it in a different way. Maybe the team then is reacting in a certain way of, well, you can't change your number like that. Now we're going to have to make you wait.
Yeah, I mean, look, and that's a circumstantial piece of this where, as I've said, I sort of understand both sides. Brandon and his agent are not wrong for being like, market changed. The market changed. But the 49ers are also not wrong to be like, dude, you said one thing and now you're doing another. And secondly, the market may have changed. Our situation did not. But again, that's always very hard for human beings. I've been through that. I'm sure many of you have been through that, where like you get to that time and they're like, yes, we want you, but like this is how we see you in this bigger picture. And you're like, that's not how I see me. Like, mirrors are tough, man. They're very, very difficult. How we view ourselves, especially if you're a pro athlete. You're a pro athlete, every one of them thinks they're the best one in the world. Brandon thinks he's the best receiver in the world. In the world. And he's not right, but he's also not that far, from being right. Like, whatever the rankings had him as yesterday, 10th. If you're 10th in the world at something, you probably think you're the best in the world.
Yeah, you're probably pretty good.
Right? So ego and all this stuff wraps into it. And I don't know what the number is. I don't know what the number is. I just know that the 49ers are probably less motivated than Brandon Aiyuk to get this done. They are not the ones who suffer if he's got to play on his fifth-year option. And that's probably an important thing that's driving Brandon crazy too, and it's why you see him all over social media. He clearly is dying to get this thing done. The Niners aren't. That's frustrating. Timing.
Yeah, and I think that the Niners would get it done, but they want to get it done on their terms. And if I'm sitting in Brandon's shoes and I know that I'm making $820,000 a game if I play on the fifth-year option, $14 million, and I'm making $820 a game, if they give me $26 million, that's almost double that. That's about $1.5 million per game for going out there and doing the one thing that I do best and the one thing that I love the most. So even though you want 28 or 29, you may have to just swallow your pride and take the 26 or whatever it is.
Well, and guys don't usually do that.
Right.
And so
especially now when you're that entrenched and you've gone through everything you've gone through.
Sure. Like, and other people's situations, the timing, like Brandon is not wrong to be like, that's not my problem. Here's the thing. It kind of is. And that's not the Niners' fault. That's the NFL's fault. That's the system's fault. You've got a hard cap. And you've got non-guaranteed deals, and all of that equals this, which is that the team has tremendous power. They've got all the juice, and they are going to play it in a way that is best for them. This is not unique to the 49ers, their receivers, or any position for that matter. This happens in every city every year. Somebody wants something that they're not going to get, and the team is going to view this as not the long-term financial strategy that they want to take. The biggest word, the buzzword that you and I have talked a lot about last few years, that every general manager, every exec talks about this word, it's flexibility. And I would argue that the Niners doing nothing in August is what actually grants them the largest amount of flexibility. So maybe the reason they're driving such a hard bargain and not budging, we think it's 26, whatever, if it is, and they're like, we're not budging, even though the world can look at this and go, it's probably a $28 million receiver. It's probably 28.5, 29. That feels to me, if we're just slotting him in the market, that feels to me like what he should get. But maybe the reason the Niners are like, sorry, 26, is because flexibility. If he doesn't sign, they're fine.
Well, it also depends on what the guaranteed number is. So, I mean,
sure,
the 26, whatever, I think for the Niners, they're probably thinking more about what's the total guaranteed at signing and how can we structure the bonus so that we can offset it over the course of 4 years, or if it's a 5-year deal, 5 years. That's probably as important, if not more important, to the Niners. And they want to have that guaranteed number be as low as possible. That way the cap hit that's being spread out is going to be smaller year after year.
I've never met Ryan Williams. I don't know Jaden Daniels. I don't know who's saying what. But so this is not just about Brandon, because I don't actually know that this is happening in this situation. But a lesson that I've learned in life too, everybody always wants, who are your friends? Well, I would say this. Be real careful about listening to the people in your life who gas you up. It's one thing to support a friend or a business partner. It's a totally different thing to just blue sky everything and tell that person, yeah, man, you're the one. You got, they're keeping you down. You got to this, you got to that, you got to the other. It is equally as important to have people you love in your life look at you and dose you with reality. Like, you have to have that. I've watched that mess up so many things for so many people when you listen to the people and you're like, yeah, the 49ers they're keeping you down. You're BA.
Gassing you up.
You that dude, man. You're gonna let them pay you less than Jalen Waddle? That's a number 2 receiver. You know Jalen Waddle? You know Devonta, you are that dude. Okay, like, that's supportive in one way. I don't know that that's happening, and there may even be some truth to it. I just feel like you counteract that also with maybe an agent who's like, all right, so here's actually the reality of the business in 2024. I understand what happened to Debo in 2022. That was 2022. Brock Purdy didn't even exist when that happened. So now we have a whole new scene. I'm not telling you what to do, but understand this is where the marketplace is. This is where the Niners are. Here's the reality of the situation if we play it this way, that way, or the third way over here. Listen to those voices too, because sometimes they have a point.
They do, but sometimes when it comes to agents, they are thinking about their own self-good.
That's true too.
As well, because whatever Brandon gets, the agent gets a piece commensurate with the increase that he's going to get. And also, as we've seen from such agents as Scott Boras in baseball, they want to win the deal. Agents are competitive people too. So if he winds up taking $26 million for his client, even though that they maybe came in at 29 and they were unable to negotiate and win the deal, now other players are going to look at him and say, dude, you got played on the Brandon Aiyuk deal. Why would I want you to represent me? So it's more than just, having Brandon take a deal that is still really sensible and a solid deal, and you're going to take care of your family and all that. The agent has his own calculus and his own scoreboard as well.
Well, but where NFL players end up so often, this happens so much, is you end up in a spot where you're like, okay, you might be right. And it still might not matter. You don't have the juice to do anything about it.
Right.
So, like, I do want to say that today as well. Brandon might be right. He might be all the right in the world. He might have a point. He might be better than Jalen Waddle. Did the market move? Yes. Like, he might be right. He still doesn't have the power. And that's too bad in many ways. It is. It's too bad. But at the same time, for those of you who think, boy, this cap, like, why, it's anti-American. Well, the fan is the one, quite frankly, who reaps the benefit, I think. The Green Bay Packers don't exist if there's no cap. They're not playing the 49ers in the playoffs. 49ers have beat them by 117 points.
Look at baseball.
Yes.
An uncapped sport.
Thank you.
And we can go across baseball right now, and you can look at the 10 small market teams that have no chance now, and really, for the most part, have no chance ever.
And NBA is only partially capped, and I would argue, and part of this is because of just the way it works with the NBA, but same thing. Same thing.
Well, those small cities have no chance.
Right.
Memphis and New Orleans and Charlotte. And, I mean, God love you, Minnesota. But when Anthony Edwards gets to a spot where he can, make more money, he might bounce.
Wow.
Giannis Antetokounmpo is the exception, not the rule. The fact that he stayed in Milwaukee.
Bring it home even further. Let's look at our adorable friends to the Northeast here in the Sacramento Kings. Okay? Look at all the phenomenal moves this group has had to make just to get into the play-in tournament. Like, right? Fox nailed it. Sabonis trade. Sweet. You're doing things like Malik Monk. And then you bring in, at the end of his career, I think an awkward fitting DeMar DeRozan. And the arena is lit up in standing ovation mode because you've probably, just my guess, you've probably gone from the 9 seed maybe to the 6, maybe to the 6. It's not like you're really going to do that thing in the Western Conference next year. In my opinion, you are not the Nuggets, you are not the Wolves, you are not the Mavs, and you are not the Thunder. But you have a standing O. Why? Because the big boys are never going to pick there. They will never, ever, ever, ever choose to join you as a free agent.
Yeah. It's just the reality of where we are.
And so we can do that, NFL, and then Brandon can have $30 million a year.
Right.
No problem. No problem. But that's the end of your fantasy football fund.
That's right.
That's the end of that.
And, Brandon Aiyuk, because he's in a sport that's capped and because it's a situation where contracts aren't guaranteed for Brandon Aiyuk, and if I'm Ryan Williams, I'm focused only on that guaranteed money. And if you look at some of the deals that were signed, Michael Pittman Jr. got $41 million guaranteed. And his deal is for 3 years and $70 million. He's only getting 23.3 a year in the average annual, but $41 million is guaranteed. Yep. So if the Niners are offering 26, 4 years at 26 is 104, how much of that would be guaranteed? If they could guarantee my client $50 million of the 104, I'm signing it.
The guarantee thing is really, I think for the fans, is hard to grasp and understand also. Like, Amon-Ra got like 30 a year, but what was the guarantee? It was tiny, right?
34.666.
Look at that.
And that's the actual guarantee. That's the guaranteed at signing, which means when the ink dries, you get that.
Right.
No matter what.
So you're looking at Pittman at 23 a year and Amon-Ra at 30 a year.
Yeah.
It's a huge gap, but Pittman got more guaranteed.
He did. So if you're Amon-Ra, you're thinking, all right, I'm good enough to play, hit my marks. They're going to keep me. I'm going to play out this contract, and I'll probably hit some incentives. And so that 4-year, $120 million, I'm probably going to recoup most, if not all of that. So the guarantee doesn't really matter. If you're Michael Pittman Jr., maybe you're thinking, well, geez, Indy's not that great, so I'll take less on average annual, but give me 41 no matter what. And if things don't work out, I at least got the 41 in the bank.
Yeah, I hear you. I'd be surprised if any player or agent is thinking the guarantee doesn't really matter.
I know what you're saying. I guess I was miscasting that.
Right, but football players think that way. They're like, the next play could be my last play.
Yeah.
They have to think that way.
Yes,
so the guarantee always matters.
Yeah, it does, but some players are more willing to bet on themselves, like Tyreek Hill, who got 4 years and 120. Only 52 of that, 52 million of that's guaranteed.
Right.
So that is about 45% of his contract is guaranteed. So he's thinking, they can't cut me. I'm Tyreek Hill. I'm going to ball through all 4 years. I'm going to get my 120. Where, as we're learning from Devontae Adams in his contract, at the end of this upcoming season, his contract is very digestible. It's about $15 million for whatever team to just say, you're cut, we'll eat the cap hit, and you get nothing.
Well, and the Tyreek thing is a good thing to bring up in this particular case, because another thing I hear people say in this situation is like, okay, let's say Brandon has to play in the fifth-year option. Well, the better he plays, the more the price is going to go up for next year. So you know that dirty Kyle Shanahan's going to call plays where they don't throw to Brandon. Ooh. They're going to keep his numbers down. They're going to throw to Kittle. That's right. That cheap little Pearsall kid, he can go in there. And we're going to throw the ball. They can't. That stuff, in my opinion, that doesn't really happen. And Tyreek's a great example. Tyreek went in there. There were incentives. There were numbers to hit. There's a lot of non-guaranteed money. And the Dolphins are like, I think we're going to throw it to him on every play. Every play. The plan is, Tyreek, run by everyone and we'll throw it over their heads. That's the plan. So they are no one is pausing and going, we got this other kid, Waddle.
Right.
It's cheaper. We could throw him the ball. Nope.
Think about it. Week 6, the Niners are 4-1. And it's 3rd down and 4, fourth quarter, you're down by 4, you need a first down. Shanahan looks at the play sheet, and he looks up at Lynch, and Lynch shakes his head no. Pearsall, get in there.
Purdy puts his hands on the sides of his helmet.
Yes.
He's like, wait, I'm getting a call. Hey, Brock, throw it to anybody but Brandon. That's the play. All right, on 3, break. I mean, the need to win is too great.
Right.
It's the same thing, and I hate even acknowledging this, but it's out there on social and on the phone calls we get so much that I'm sorry, that I even bring this up, but it comes up a lot in the Pajemski and Kuminga thing, and it's come up a few times. It's just Steve Wilkes, Kyle Shanahan. People are like, do you know what? Like they're throwing the ball. They're giving the minutes to the white guy because Steve Kerr's a racist. It's like, you guys. The pressure to be good and to win is so great. By the way, the entire idea of racism in play calling and racism in playing time, I think is kind of funny in the NFL and the NBA. If you want to talk about racism in hiring, we can have a conversation there.
Absolutely.
But outside of that, I think it's kind of silly. Actually, it's not kind of silly. It's beyond absurd. The pressure to win is so great that there is a singular focus, I think, in every play call and every game. And nobody's thinking about contracts or anything else. It's get that first down.
Yes, especially when you're talking about, coaches and managers who've been successful. Now, if you have some hacks who haven't won and don't know what they're doing, then maybe that creeps in there.